that he revealed that his job is to essentially operate, quote,
very fluid investigation. It's very early, and I have asked the assistance of the GBI and the agencies here behind me today, and there are multiple agencies that responded this morning to help us and help the sheriff's office. We do have a suspect in custody, and we are asking for your patience as the media to please let us get the facts that we need to make sure we get this right. Again, I've asked the GBI to help us, the sheriff's office, to help us along with this. I know this is not what you want to hear, but I'm not going to answer questions after this is over with. But I wanted to give you the respect and our community respect to let them know what was going on initially. We're in the process of reunifying our students with their parents. Obviously, that's chaotic.
No, we know the first shots came in the first reports of shots came in just about 2 hours ago now, and you still have what looks to be hundreds of kids out there on the school grounds able to go home at this hour.
Yeah, this is a school of about 1,900 students, and immediately as this incident happened and just after we saw those students being sent to the football field, some were gathered in prayer circles, waiting to find out more information, as were we. And now those students at the high school have been released. They are okay to leave and go home to their parents. But all the other schools in this district are still on soft lockdown, and authorities are advising everyone to stay away from these schools if they're not coming to pick up their kids there at the high school. And our affiliate there in Atlanta is saying one of their reporters was.
We just talked about this yesterday. It's not a prediction you want to come true. However, what else do we expect in this climate? constantly. That's the first of what will undoubtedly be a few school shootings in this school year. Um, Welcome to Let It Be Known. Uh, it is incredibly disgusting that this keeps happening. There is protocols that they do afterwards. Why not do them before? Listen, when I was going to school, it's always back when we go back, but it's true. When um, Jay is joining us this morning, Jay, and we have a lot to talk about this morning, including he's wearing a Chicago Bears jersey and a Miami Dolphins hat, so he's conflicted. There's no question about it. But we're going to talk sports this morning too. Got a couple of hot topics to talk about, but we're going to obviously, Jay, start there in Georgia. When I was going to school, some schools even had metal detectors, and then we didn't have the problem of school shootings, but yet they were worried. They were concerned that maybe some fights might escalate, and they were more concerned with knives and things of that nature. Now, Jay, it is AR-15s. This is the weapon of choice for school shooters. And once again, what are the politicians saying? What we said yesterday. Thoughts and prayers. Jay, this is absolutely ridiculous. A 14-year-old and four people are now dead. At least four. Two students, two teachers.
Yeah. This is a violent country. I don't know how else to say it. This is a very violent country, always has been. And Americans don't want to admit that. I always keep telling people the country was founded based off of violence. The country was founded based off of people who had superior weapons who came in and took the land by force. That is America. We've never gotten away from that. We just happen to see it in an updated version in 2024. Here in Chicago, a couple days ago, we had 4 citizens who were murdered on the CTA L train. 4 citizens who were just on the train, for the most part, kind of sleeping in the middle of the night. We believe they were homeless. We're still getting details on it. And an individual with a handgun walked up to them and shot all 4 of them and killed them right there on the train at 5:30 in the morning for no reason.
5:30 in the morning.
Right. And so, violence comes in many forms here, and the tools that are used are different in these situations, whether it's an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, whether it's a handgun, whether it's a machete. I mean, America is just a violent culture. And the hardest thing in the world to change is a culture.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny too, because you say that, and I was making a sports reference, and oftentimes when you have a losing team, they bring in a new coach, a new manager, and the first thing they say is we got to change the culture, and it's a 5-year plan. It's always a 5-year plan for a team to get out from under the last regime and change the culture, as it were. So that's an excellent point. Um, but again, aren't there measures, folks? I mean, Power 96 is saying charge the father as well as the son here with accessory. But aren't there? So that's a post shooting measure. But
Mm-hmm.
there are measures that can be taken. We know it's really almost senseless to talk about changing laws because they just the gun lobbies, the gun folks are so far into the pockets of the politicians. It's not going to happen. What else can be done? People have kids going to school every day, and we're talking about not just, in this case, this is a high school. We're not talking about
Mm-hmm.
just grade school. We see this on college campuses too. What can be done to preempt this, Jay?
Well, I think that's one of the things is that we have to be realistic on what can be done and what can't be done and what's going to be effective and what is not going to be effective. The way I look at it is if you have teenagers in your home and you are a gun owner, be a responsible gun owner. Keep your guns locked away in a safe where your young people don't have access to them. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have to know your child. You have to know your child and what is going on in their lives. The Sandy Hook shooter is the perfect example. That young man was disturbed. His father knew he was disturbed. His mother knew he was disturbed, yet his mother was the one who would go shooting with him, gave him access to the weapons. The mother and the father were not together, and he kept warning her, like, hey, our son got issues. You don't need to be teaching
Right.
him this stuff, and he definitely doesn't need access to the weapon. So what happened? The young man got access to the weapons. He ended up killing his own mother, and then we know what he did when he got to Sandy Hook Elementary by murdering them poor preschoolers and grammar school kids before he eventually died himself. So it starts in the home, just like most things. You have to be realistic about your child's mental and social capacities, and you have to be a responsible gun owner and keep your weapons locked away so that the only person who has access to them is yourself.
Well, Power 96 said there are no measures that will be taken. The feds and local authorities investigated the father and son, gave them both a pass. Austin says only when elected officials start losing their family members to gun violence will they begin to take effective measures. And even that, I question that because we've had lawmakers shot themselves. But I question that too because it's the almighty dollar that seems to drive these politicians on Capitol Hill. And we know how radical, and not to pick on one party over the other, because both parties are egregious in not making sure that strict laws are passed. But we know just how radical some of the Republicans are. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert pose with weapons with their children. And so we know that they are gun nuts, if you will, and there's no it's so irresponsible. And again, it's about the dollar. They're just going to continue to take the dollar from the gun folks. We had a story yesterday in which gun stores were legally selling legal gun stores selling guns to somebody they knew they should not have been selling to in the Washington D.C. area. So it's so much of this. And now somebody, I noticed this too, and I don't want to make too much. Maybe I shouldn't make too much issue out of this because this is really at this point it becomes irrelevant. But I've seen this flood the timelines. You know that the shooter was not black simply because he surrendered, was taken into custody. The words peacefully was used. And it's a shame that we even have to go there, Jay, but facts are facts, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I've seen this a number of ways. I've seen shooters who were killed on the scene. I've seen shooters who were taken into custody. I've seen it from multiple races, but for the most part, and I try not to even bring that element into it because people have died. You know, we're not bringing these people back. So if the person is taken into custody alive, or if they're shot dead at the scene by law enforcement, or if they take their own lives, which is what happens most of the time, is that they end up taking their own lives. It's really it's just a shame. It's just a shame. I don't really get into that aspect of it too much. This particular individual was taken into custody as a 14-year-old, and this is obviously a very deeply disturbed young man. At the very least, we don't know what was going on in his life. We often see kids who were bullied by other classmates who are doing this. We see kids who have mental health issues who do this. That's what I'm saying. It runs the gamut.
Yeah.
The killer at Virginia Tech, when that happened over a decade ago, that guy didn't use AR-15 at all. He just used two handguns, and he killed 30 people with two handguns. You see what I'm saying? So I keep stressing this point. It's the culture of this country. This is a very violent violent culture?
The photo that Greer displayed just a moment ago was one of the victims, autistic
Mm.
Mason. He was among those who lost their life yesterday, and it's just really, really sad. Mason Skimmerhorn, who was 14, Christian Angula, who was also 14, and then the teachers, Christina Irene at 53 years old, and Richard Aspinwall, who was 39. 9 others were wounded. They are expected right now, according to officials, they are all expected to recover. This is again, we keep seeing these school shootings, and we keep hearing the same lines from politicians about thoughts and prayers and no real it's gotten to the point where these politicians there's absolutely no outrage whatsoever. It is simply my thoughts and prayers are with you. And now so Jay, and you could talk about that too, the lack of security at schools. I mentioned earlier all those years in the past, decades ago, a lot of the schools in New York City, there were security guards, and in some of the schools they had metal detectors. There's a lack of security today.
Yeah, Chicago public schools all have metal detectors, every last one of them. And you have to go through them. I can say this because I know it as a high school referee. When I go to these schools, I have to go through the metal detector. I have to sign in. Every high school in Chicago has a metal detector. Now, up until this past year, every Chicago high school also had a Chicago police officer that was stationed at that particular school. By doing that, we haven't had these mass shootings inside of Chicago public schools, fortunately. Now, that does not mean that there are not shootings that happen all the time outside of the schools. So there's only so much security that you can do. And again, it gets back to our violent culture. Um, you know, you know, we have so many just general fights that take place in schools. These mob fights that take place, or a gang on gang fight, and nobody's killed, but people get injured every day just
Mhm.
because that we just have a culture of violence and not de-escalation in United States. I've traveled to 16 different countries, and every time I travel to another country, I always feel safer than I do in the
Mhm.
United States. It's just everyone else is nicer in the world than we are, and I think social media has actually kind of made it worse in America because we
Yeah,
just
without
fight
question.
over everything. But I definitely think there's a lack of security. I'm gonna say this. In urban schools, whether you're talking Chicago, New York, Detroit, we kind of take the threat of gun violence more seriously than they do in rural schools or suburban schools, which often see the metal detectors as they're more image conscious,
Mhm.
But when we look at where these school shootings take place, it's
Exactly.
happening in most of those schools where there is no metal detector. So, you know, I it's just, I hate that we have to do it. But it's necessary. And one of my biggest fears is when I'm going into one of these schools to officiate a contest, and it's usually after school hours where security is a little bit more lax because most of the students gone home, is that someone's going to come in and shoot up the gym. That's
Yeah.
like my biggest fear.
Yeah. And it's a shame that even that has to be a fear, but it is. Again, the four, two students, teachers lost their lives. 9 others reportedly are injured. And the good news there is that, according to officials, they are expected to survive. But this keeps happening. It keeps happening. This is a Congress issue. I want to make it clear, folks. This falls every school shooting, every single one. And I'm going to put it plain: the blood of the victims is on the hands of these radical Congress people and those ones that are in the pockets of these gun lobbyists. It's as simple as that. because they have the power. They are the ones, not the president, not the vice president, not anybody in the cabinet. It is Congress. So whoever is running, whoever is controlling, overseeing Congress, Speaker, the party. Listen. You want to hold somebody accountable. In addition to the shooter and his family, that's where you need to turn, because these people walk around like theirs don't smell, and they tell you all about, they make all these other restrictive laws, except guns, except
Mhm.
AR-15s in the hands of 14-year-olds. We had a story yesterday. An 11-year-old committed a double homicide with a gun. An 11-year-old. So nothing alarms these people enough because the money is flowing in from these gun folks. And we have people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York, the representative of New York, who from day one has said, get rid of this type of lobbies, get rid of this money, make it so that you can't take that money. Because if they're not taking that money, they have no incentive to continue to allow these kids to be killed, these teachers to be killed, and everyone else to be put at risk. Parents to lose sleep because they don't know which day they're going to get the call from their child's school. These politicians are the ones that also have the blood on their hands. Austin says, then we have to deal with law enforcement officers who are too scared to enter schools to save our children and teachers. Mike V, this is exactly what I'm saying, Mike. He says they rather ban Black authors and Black books, though. That's what's important to them. That is what is important to them. Jay, also this morning, wanted to bring this up too, real quick. In a moment, we're going to get to sports. We're going to have Power 96. We're going to have the Redbone join us shortly this morning. We're talking sports. But before we get there, let's see what Monique says first. Don't get it wrong. Security would help, but these people have their minds made up. They are coming in with their guns in hand and will shoot anyone in their way. The government has to figure out gun control. A security guard means nothing when the shooter is mentally ill. 100%. 100%. Again, it's when you say the government, once again, let's be very, very intentional. It is Congress, the House of Representatives. That is who we're talking about here. Victor Moses knew he wanted to be a police officer, Jay, ever since he was in middle school. He was introduced to the profession while he was growing up in Tallahassee, Florida in 2005, when he would see a neighbor's friend who worked for the Tallahassee Police Department coming and going from the job. He said, I just enjoyed hearing her tell her stories and seeing her. He says, I was always intrigued as a child, just watching her and seeing the police car. But tragedy struck not long after Moses decided to pursue his dream of becoming an officer 18 years later. And it's a dream that probably will never come true. During a training exercise while he was a recruit for the Denver Police Department, Moses says that the department officials and paramedics forced him to participate in what they call Fight Day, which is a brutal hazing ritual that cost Moses both his legs. This is outrageous. You got adults, you hear of college hazing, but the Denver police, so they put them through these so-called dynamic action drills, according to Moses. And the drill involves 4 stations intended to teach future officers how to escalate and de-escalate force. And they call it Fight Day. At the second station, Moses was knocked to the ground, hit his head, and passed out in a simulated attack by multiple department personnel. They then forced him to his feet to continue to drill until he passed out again when an officer called paramedics over. He told the paramedics that he was extremely fatigued and experiencing extreme leg cramping, which is a sign of distress in people with the sickle cell trait. And he had informed the department that he had the sickle cell trait in his application. Although the paramedics found that his blood pressure was extremely low, they cleared him to continue training. Well, he went on and on, Jay. He lost his legs and his ability to be a police officer. I mean,
What kind
what
of story is this, Stacy? What in the world are we? This is the police department. This is
police
doing
department.
this. And it's not funny. I don't mean to laugh at it.
No, exactly.
It gets back to what I'm saying. The culture in this country. Okay, hazing is violence. Let's start there. It's why fraternities and sororities banned it. It's why different sports teams, high school teams, college teams, they banned it. You know, if you caught doing it, you're going to get in trouble. When I was a player back in the 80s, hazing was a part of things. Even when I started coaching in the 90s, but in the late 90s, they came down very forcefully on coaches. Hey, you got to get this out of your team. You know, you have to change the culture of this hazing thing. Same thing with the fraternities and sororities. There's some hazing that you can still do for initiation, but the violent stuff, the physical stuff, you can't do it anymore. It's just that simple. You cannot do it. So why a law enforcement agency is allowing it is just stupid. You're asking for it. So let's get to the next part of the story, Stacey. How much is the lawsuit? How much are the citizens of Denver now gonna have to fork over? Because the citizens are the ones who have to end up paying for this.
Thank you. Exactly. 100%. I keep saying that too. We tend to celebrate these rightfully awarded millions of dollars in payouts. They can't. Listen. They deserve, the families, the victims deserve it. But who's paying the bill? And it seems to escape, Jay, a lot of people, because there's no real outrage about that either. This guy, Moses. So we know George Floyd and others said, I can't breathe. Well, he said the same thing. I can't breathe. What is it with black people telling police, even as a police officer, I can't breathe, that makes them go even harder?
They don't see the humanity in the person when this stuff is taking place. They completely remove the humanity out of this person. That's the only way you treat people like this. And I say this again, I've said it before on other shows. In this country, we treat dogs with more rights than we do with human beings. We treat animals better than we treat human beings. I saw a video last week, Stacy, of a shark, an actual shark that had a fishing hook caught in its mouth. And these big three burly white guys are on the beach, and two of them are holding the shark. A shark now. They're holding the shark while the third man takes the hook out of the shark's mouth, and then they throw the shark back in the ocean, and they're cheering, and the news interviews. I feel like I did a good thing today for society and humanity.
Yeah,
and
let that have been somebody, a body, a person.
there you go. That's what
a
I'm
human.
saying. It got back to, my immediate thinking was, if this was a black person, would they have helped this person this way? It's just a stain on society in the United States. And I feel terrible for this young brother that lost his career.
It is absolutely.
Whose quality of life now has been drastically changed. And it happened at the hands of people who are supposed to have his back, people who are supposed to be his teammate, people who have taken an oath to protect people. And this is how they treat one of their own. I mean, there's a lot of instances that we see of law enforcement officers misbehaving. The
I think Jay's freezing up a bit there.
is
Power
blue.
96.
It's a fictional count of a person who's a member of the LAPD, but you can see how it could play out in pretty much any law enforcement agency in the United States. Again, the culture of law enforcement in the United States, they're just a symptom of the society as a whole. And, that's where we're seeing all this violence come from.
Yeah, I was going to bring up. So Power 96 says he was never hazed so he served 20 years in the U.S. military, Marine Corps recruit training. It's the toughest boot camp in the nation. He wasn't having it. But here's the thing with that. I bring his comment up because just imagine it's rare. It's still not. Black police officers are still very, very much few and far in between. So I just imagine that Moses in Denver was just not able to say, I'm not having it. I just, I just think that was not an option. And that's unfortunate. And to your point, Jay, Mike V, to Jay's point, he says there are federal protections in place to protect the bald eagle.
Yeah. Or not even the bald eagle. I can get the bald eagle, Stacey. That's the American symbol. I can roll with that. Them dumb Canadian geese that take poops all over the golf course, all over the place, and do all that stuff. There's a law. They are federally protected. I'm like,
somebody don't like the Canadian geese.
Oh my God. Everybody hates them damn birds. I'm like, I can't shoot this thing. This thing pooped all over my lawn. No, they're federally protected. So yes, we will protect animals. We'll protect whales. We'll protect geese, eagles, dogs, human beings. You kind of on your own.
You're on your own. Yeah, exactly. Jay, we're gonna turn to sports. Something yesterday that came up, and there's a lot to unpack with this particular story. Washington Commanders have suspended an employee who made comments about the team's players being anti-gay. He accused Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones of being racist and anti-gay and called NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell a $50 million puppet. The team said it has suspended its vice president of content, Rael Entine, who has been with the organization for 4 years for comments he made to an undercover reporter for the O'Keefe Media Group. This is ridiculous. I mean, I think we got some volume there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know. I thought we maybe had some audio.
All
okay,
hell.
we do.
Would you say most people who work at the NFL, with you as the exception of your former boss, would you say that they're just not very smart?
There's just obviously a spectrum, but
Yeah.
I've met some very smart.
What about like the players?
There's some that are dumb as all hell.
Commanders VP of Content, Rael Entine, discussed his disdain for NFL fans to our OMG American Swiper, stating they are, quote, high school educated alcoholics and mouth breathers.
Most of the fans, I would say, are high school educated.
Walk me through again your breakdown, your description of the Commanders players.
Over 50% of our roster, right, is either white religious and God says fuck the gays.
Meet Rael Entine, the vice president of.
So and he goes on, he says many the African American players are many of them come from low income and they come from areas that are anti-gay. He goes on this whole thing answering questions. Here's the thing, Jay. So he's supposedly, folks, he asked this girl out on a date, or somebody asked somebody out on a date. He either asked her, or she asked him. It was supposed to be a date. She is an undercover reporter from one of these organizations, whatever you want to call them. OMG is what they want to call themselves, but O'Keefe Media Group. But many questions. aside from what he said, I know you're going to get into that. And here's the one and only Dawn Montgomery. Hey, what's up, girl?
Good morning. That kind of shocked me coming in.
Now, I don't know if you and Jay are acquainted with each other.
We know of each other, but hello, Jay.
What's up,
All
Don?
right. So we are talking, Dawn. And you may have seen as you came in the video of the Washington football coach. I mean, not coach, the VP of content. So I'm gonna let you guys go at it, but I'm gonna throw this out. I'm gonna throw this out there. Aside from what he said, because an argument could be made that some of the stuff he said, somebody can make an argument that all the stuff he said was probably true, right? But that's not the issue here. Well, that's not my issue yet. It's one of my peeves. But the fact that this guy went on a date, thinking he's on a date, and then they secretly record. This is not journalism, folks.
Nope.
This is some To Catch a Predator type stuff. This is outrageous that they even purport to be a journalistic organization, in my opinion. Now, Jay, Dawn, y'all might have different takes. Have at it. Ladies first.
Okay, well, I mean, for me, I completely agree because, first of all, the dating. Let's be clear with the name of the dating app that they met on. It was Hinge. You have to be unhinged to do something like this towards somebody and be so malicious in the sense of like the line of questioning. Because if you've watched the video, it's how she asks him to repeat himself, to further clarify his statements. As in, I'm sorry, on a second date, I'm not asking you to clarify anything. Probably who's paying for the check because it's the second date, but outside of that, to me, it's just one of those things where it's very frustrating as a journalist for this particular media outlet to say, it was basically like how you remember the guy from Unsolved Mysteries, where he would come on the screen and he would kind of like paint a picture for everything. That's literally how they did that video. It was like someone got on there, they're telling you what to expect in the video and kind of like foreshadowing and all of the things. And yes, Stacey, to your point, majority of what he was saying, especially in regards to the Shield and the Shield being the league, very, very much true. We knew this. We know these things. So to me, that's confirmation that comes from the inside, and you've got someone who was on staff, an employee that I'm telling you now, he can come back and apologize and say he was wrong, but I believed everything he said. But to me, the things that he had to say about players and fans was out of pocket.
That was out of pocket.
To be that comfortable to talk about the people who are paying your salary, to talk about the people who we know majority of the makeup of this particular league is Black athletes, and you're literally stereotyping them. Like, I had to show this to my 13-year-old son who plays football currently, and it's one of those things where you have to remind your children, this is how they see you. This is how they see you. And it's up to you to kind of do the things that you quite possibly can to change those stereotypes and challenge those stereotypes. But at the end of the day, this is exactly how they see us and how they want to categorize us and make people feel as if we're less than. And it pisses me off. I'm just going to be honest. It pisses me off. So I need two things in this. So there's a reporter from Front Office Sports. His name is AJ Perez. Shouts out to him. He's somebody who has covered the welfare scandal with Brett Favre in the state of Mississippi and that. But he has been reporting on this as well. And one of the things that he needs to know, and I want to know, this is my first question, where were they when they had this date? Because that determines the legal standpoint of, was this a one-party type state where you don't need to have the other person, give consent to be recorded, and can this be used against them in court or any type of legal proceedings, right? So that's one question. And then the second thing is, who was this reporter? Get her out of here. I'm sorry. Yeah. Get her out of here.
And so he's going to lose his job. They have suspended him pending what they say further investigation, which means that he's going to lose his job. Jay, go ahead.
That was like entrapment.
Exactly.
Good Lord. I mean, I'm glad this person wasn't a police officer. The prosecutor would be like, we can't
Listen.
use this as evidence. What are you doing? That was an ambush. That was it wasn't journalism. And so I'll say this, as a journalist, it's been a beef of mine for almost a decade now of how media companies have popped up. You have people who are not trained journalists who are just doing whatever the hell they want to do because the technology is allowing for everyone to have a podcast. Everyone can start a website and call it media. The strict definition of media, yes, but journalism is a completely different animal. And what we're seeing across the world with citizen journalists, or whether it's the First Amendment auditors, who we just had one who got beat up here in the Chicago area a couple months ago. Just because you have a camera and a microphone doesn't make you a journalist. And
Right.
it's making it very hard on people in our industry who are hardworking journalists to do our jobs, because the president of NABJ Chicago chapter just said it last week. He spends most of his time now dispelling misinformation. And Dawn is on Twitter a lot. I'm on Twitter a substantial amount of time, or X, and social media. And half of the time, what you read, and you're like, man, this is so inaccurate. It ain't even
Right.
funny. We just had that in Chicago with people thinking a bunch of Venezuelan immigrants took over an entire building
Exactly.
by force. And it was a lie. But, before the truth gets out there, the lie done had a 2-hour head start. So I feel, how do I say this? Do I want to say I feel bad for this guy? He was stupid. Let me say that. First of all, he's stupid.
Because second date. Dawn, you said it was
The
the second date, right?
He out here trying to impress her.
Exactly. Hence why I don't feel bad for him, because
Yeah.
you caught exactly what you thought you were going to get. Because you also have to think about these type of men. To be fair, majority of that conversation, he was genuinely trying to impress her. But in trying to impress her, he looks like an a-hole completely. Because how is it that you are using majority of your time? Because I think it was stated that they were on the date for like roughly maybe an hour and a half. I have to get more information on that because they're trying to clarify that. But majority of that conversation that was recorded was over 30 minutes. So that means over 80% of that conversation was about you complaining about your job and trying to say something that would impress the person across the table, to the point to where I no longer feel bad for you because you kept going with this. He could have easily said, hey, we're on a date. I don't want to talk about my job. That's one thing that I tell people, and one thing about me, don't ask me about my work. If I don't ask you anything about the work that you do, or how you get paid, or what you do, during the day or during the evening, don't you ask me about my stuff. So as far as I'm concerned, I do not feel bad for this guy. One of the other things, Jay, to your point though, that brings up a wonderful point just in general. I want to really make sure that this person no longer can get a job in this league or any sports league at all, just because of his bias and the stereo. Listen, that part, like, he's already told us who he is. He's already shared all of these things. And yes, people change. People can, grow. They can go through all of these things. But baby, that doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen overnight, because he was coming out with, this is how this happened. This is why this happens this way. Especially when he started talking about the DEI initiatives from the league. And we know for a fact we already knew these things. And it was like, oh, you're telling somebody that you ain't slept with this woman. I mean, I'm talking about, could be talking about their business or whatever.
Left that for the pillow talk, right?
Listen, isn't that what pillow talk is for? It's not. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, no.
He should have just told her he could have just told her, you got real pretty eyes. I love the way your hair looked tonight. Man, it's so many things he could have said
Her
that got him
nail.
out of this situation.
Listen, her nail color was pretty. I kind of want to know what her nail color was. Is that OPI or is that DNS? Like, what are we doing? Like, there was other things that could have been discussed on this date versus him really just jumping into this trash can being a fire to drag the NFL with him. And it's one of those things where I think, just as journalists too, as we fight misinformation, disinformation, all of the things, I think it's important to also hold on to what is true. Hold on to what has been said. Hold on to, like, give him credit for the fact that he worked for the Jets before he got to the Commanders.
Right.
This is somebody that has worked in this is just me. I have no allegiance to nobody in the NFL, okay? But these are two very storied, toxic working environments.
Markets.
Yes. So I'm sorry if I'm somebody who is going to really listen to what has been said and remove how I emotionally feel about how he says it and in an environment that he says it, and really think logically about what has been said and report from that. Like, that's what's important to me.
So really quick.
Go ahead,
just real
Jay.
quick, Dawn and Stacey, I'll say this, just to play the devil's advocate, can you fire someone if they were recorded illegally? You see what I'm saying? It could be, yes, he put the information out there, but we all agree how the information was obtained was not straightforward.
And I didn't go to law school. I should have. I had an opportunity to go, and I did not go. I should have. And so if anybody wants to pay for my law degree, this is my advertisement.
There you go.
I will say this. As an employer, even if you cannot do that, depending on where the state stands, if it's a one-party state or not, one thing I will say is that would make me bring you in for a review. And within that review, if I go through some documentation and there's other things that kind of match how you have basically stated how you felt about players as well as fans, especially in general, where the post, the social media post where he lied, he intentionally, like, I think he called it state media or something, he said, where he lied about the sewage water getting on fans, and he wrote something and said, "Come on,
so he
that right there is grounds. That right there is grounds. I'm sorry." So that's why I'm saying hold on to how we got it is not legal, right? And how we receive it is important, because we have to listen for the things that we can use. And that's the thing that would protect a team or an organization from allowing someone to get away from being fired. And he gave that to them. He gave that to them.
Because he, like, to Dawn's point, if folks don't know, he mentioned that there was some sewage that was spilling out onto the fans, and there was an outcry, and so he told the fans, he posted on social media, "Oh no, it's just water. It wasn't sewage," when it really, and he admitted it really was. So now the Commanders do have that if they want to use that. But he's done. He's finished. But before we move on, though, I want to say this. I want to get this out. This part of the NFL. So everything that man was saying, he gave you the insider's view, right, about the commissioner being a puppet. We already know that. But more importantly, the whole faux DE&I stuff. And I saw your boy Dawn Power 96 writing in about Jay-Z. But the thing about it is the NFL has not been held accountable enough by Black folks and Black media in particular. They don't do any business with Black media. They're not held accountable by Black media. And then you got someone like Jay-Z in bed with the NFL. I don't care if people say it's just the Super Bowl. It's still the NFL. It's the NFL's signature event. He's in bed with them. Folks forget about what they did to Colin Kaepernick. Easily forget about what they did to him. And how they've treated Black quarterbacks as a whole. They are very happy with Pat Mahomes for sure, whose wife is as lily white, Trump supporter, so they're very comfortable with that. And so, but black media and black folks in general have never held the NFL accountable, and that's a problem, Jay.
Yeah.
It is. It is. And but the problem is that the NFL is just this large conglomerate billionaire status, and let's just be honest, we addicted. I mean, look what I'm wearing. I'm wearing a
Oh,
Dolphins
look what he's
hat
wearing. Dog,
and a
look what he's
Pro
wearing.
Bowl. I'm wearing a Pro Bowl Chicago Bears Devin Hester jersey because that's my
And a
favorite
Miami
player all
Dolphins
time, and a
hat.
Miami Dolphins hat because that's my team. We addicted. Let's be honest. when they did the brothers wrong, when they took a knee, we protested for all about 2 weeks together, and we're gonna boycott the NFL. Then the game came on, we were like, man, that dude can throw. So let's be honest. They got us. We know it. You try to hold them accountable, but what can you really do? That's just the harsh reality of it.
You can withhold your money. You can still be a fan and not actually watch the games or attend the games. You can there's multiple things that you can quite possibly do, but it's someone dedicated to consistently doing that to where it actually will create a ripple, like in that start something. I think that there have been ways that we've tried to hold the NFL accountable, but another thing about us as a community, and we all can probably agree on this, and it's fine if we don't, is that we don't stand 10 toes down consistently together as other groups do in order to kind of really make a change. I know for just in general, like immediately about maybe 2 seasons after, we were trying to hold their feet to the fire about Colin Kaepernick and all of the players who were kneeling during the national anthem. I still don't get up during the national anthem. If I'm somewhere, I don't care if I'm working as media, I'm not moving. Like, I'm not putting my hand on my chest. My child is in the military. He's in the Air Force. And to be honest with you, I've explained my position on that. And he understands that and he respects that. As other veterans in my family understand that as well. But to me, it's one of those things where until you consistently put it in your mind that you're not going to do certain things and you're going to be honest about what that means and what that means for you to give up. Because another thing about that is people always want to be included. So if I'm the only one standing over here protesting and nobody's joining me over here, eventually I'm going to, depending on who I am, I'm going to get tired, right? Me personally, I don't care. I think I've been very vocal in the type of things that I've wanted to be credentialed in regards to the league. I think I've steered away from doing some type of NFL coverage and all of the things, and that's just my personal choice. And I've advocated for that. Like, I've been very forthcoming with that. But I think also the difference between me and someone who's coming up in media who wants to work in this space, I have the experience, I have the background, and I have the wherewithal to kind of like stand my ground because nobody's going to make me move. If I'm someone new coming into the industry and I want to be in these spaces, I'm not going to challenge the system in a way that someone like me has more experience and more time on my hands to where I'm like, I don't need this. I don't really need this. And I mean, that's where we can be kind of honest about how come we haven't challenged them? How come we haven't done certain things? I think it's changed. It's changed in how we challenge them. It's changed in how we force their hand. I know that there's a Black reporter that covers the Kansas City Chiefs. I can't think of his name right now. I'm so bad about that. But I know that he was somebody who took the baton upon himself and stood in the newsroom during the Super Bowl and asked, the commissioner about why there aren't many Black press people in that particular space. And again, the commissioner lied to his face the same way he lied to Jim Trotter. And then we know what happened with Jim Trotter after Jim Trotter challenged, the commissioner. And Jim did that consistently. So it's one of those things where even if somebody gets booted out, who's the person that's going to pick up the baton and consistently challenge the Shield and tell them, we know what you're doing. We're going to call it out at every angle. And it's on us to kind of report that. It's on us to be honest about that. So that's why what this man had to say in this video says everything we need to know about this league and the people that work in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Dawn, I wanted to ask you about your block party, but we have to move to the next topic. Dawn went on a block party the other day. She she hosted a block party
I'm
the other
still
day.
blocking. I'm
She
still
still,
blocking.
I noticed that too. She, it was absolute. We talked about it on the show too the other day when you were on, hosting your block party. It was absolutely a tremendous thing to see. Caitlin Clark, the rift in the friendship between a pair of women's basketball legends may be beyond repair in light of comments made by both Nancy Lieberman and Cheryl Swoops over the past few hours, the past couple of days, really. Different opinions about the impact that Caitlin Clark is having on the game has driven a wedge between the Hall of Famers, with Nancy Lieberman saying that the two no longer have a relationship anymore. Um, Listen, I'm gonna let Jay go first because I know Dawn has a whole lot to say about it. Go ahead, Jay.
So for me, I mean, I wrote this article a few days ago, and I've been covering the WNBA since they started a team in Chicago nearly 20 years ago. Okay, been there when nobody was in the stadium, has been covering it, has written about all the problems with this league since its inception, from the marketing to just all the silly stuff that the league has done. And this year, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese have brought out the worst of our society, shows how fractured we are as Americans. People have brought their own levels of bigotry and racism into a sport that I love. And now we're seeing the legends tearing each other apart, basically over Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And it's just the league isn't fun to cover anymore.
Mm.
And I get that this is part of progress in the league. It's got more eyes on it than it's ever had before. It's got more interest than ever before. It's going to make more money this year than it has in years past. And with success, this is some of the stuff that comes with it. I am happy that we are at least talking about the WNBA in a space in which it deserves. But I think we're just seeing a lot of our own societal ills now coming into conversations about the WNBA. And that's basically what I wrote about. I think this league has got a very bright future. You have some very talented players who are coming into the league. You also have old veteran players who have held the league down, and they should be recognized as well. And I think that's a lot where some of the friction is coming in, that, who are these new kids on the block who coming in, getting all this attention. And I get that, but it's progress. The league is moving forward. I just wish everybody would calm down, to be honest. I think everybody got to relax, try to enjoy the game. Nobody's talking about the game. That's the problem that I'm having with this. Nobody's talking about the skill sets of all the players. Nobody's discussing how the WNBA is probably the hardest professional league to crack, because they have a limited amount of roster spots and a limited amount of teams. So if you get on this roster, you can straight out ball. And, it's just really aggravating to witness some of the comments that are being made by uneducated people. And
but Jay,
you don't have to be team Caitlin or team Angel. You can be team everybody and be happy and just enjoy the game. But that's just not where this thing is going, and it's very disappointing.
But you have, before you jump in, Dawn, you do have folks like Charles Barkley and others, like Stephen A. Smith, fanning the flames and saying nonsense and stuff like that. And yes, Power 96, Stephen A. Smith is absolutely in Team Nancy. Go ahead, Dawn.
Here's the thing. As
Uh-oh,
an avid,
if you start doing that, we're in trouble.
As an avid WNBA fan, Atlanta Dream season ticket holder, I think I had tickets for at least a good 10 years before I pulled back, and that was because of some things that was happening with the organization. And then when the team itself started coming out in their own political activism, that's when I bought back into the team and what have you. And as a parent who has children who love this league, right? We need to be clear about what we saw coming when Caitlin Clark was doing the things she was doing in her last year, right, in college basketball. And there were a lot of WNBA fans who knew she was coming into this league, who knew she was going to be drafted first, who knew where she was going, who knew exactly why we kept saying we didn't want those type of fans in this league. There was a reason, because we have dealt with racism in this league itself since its inception, to be honest with you. And it hit ahead when people like athletes like Sue Bird and Deanna Taurasi came into the league. And that's when they were like, here's our golden ticket, because you also have to look at the makeup of the WNBA. It has majority Black women, and some of those Black women are queer. And so we know what happens when you have these Black women who are whose relationship status does not identify as something as what the league itself wants to market. You're going to go looking for the thing that you feel like is going to be more mainstream and bring in more money. And who is that? A white, straight woman, right? And so even with the people that I previously mentioned, knowing that they're white and queer, it wasn't really such a big push. You get what I'm saying? Like they were going to bat for them. They were placing them up front for people to see, and they were marketing them accordingly. But I feel like right when we had Breanna Stewart coming in, Sabrina Ionesco coming in, and then it was the creeping in of more fans coming in and creating that division of, oh, we've got more white players that we can promote or we can talk about. Racism has been we know racism exists. We know that happens. We know it is what it is, and these people keep continuing to play in our face no matter what sports league it is, as if we don't know that these things are permeating within our fandom, within our sports that we want to watch. I'm okay with everyone getting along to get along, but I'm going to tell you something now. I don't like Miss Porn. That's what I call her. And as far as I'm yes, thank you. And the reason why I choose not to like her, and this has been with me actually paying attention to college basketball when she played and seeing her transition into the league, she has yet to go to bat for her teammates into a sense of saying, you all need to chill out with how you're talking about my teammates. I'm trying to get acclimated in this league. I'm trying to find my place. These people are welcoming me. These people are supporting me. Now, me not liking her has nothing to do with me not supporting her. And I think that's where people draw the line for someone like a Sheryl Swoopes, who is legend. She's a GOAT. Her and Nancy Lieberman are GOATs. But Nancy Lieberman's racism popped out because you felt some type of way because you saw a Black woman critique someone that you felt you see yourself in, versus removing that emotional, feeling of, oh, she could be talking about me, because if we're going to call a spade, Nancy Lieberman put her, choked out a player when she played in the WNBA. Nancy Lieberman literally got fired from the Detroit Shock because she had an inappropriate relationship with the player on her team. And if I'm not mistaken, Nancy Lieberman was married to a woman at the time when she had said relationship. And I could be wrong. But to my point is, while you're worrying about uplifting and platforming certain players, you also have to be mindful of what you say. Nancy Lieberman was wrong in how she said when she talked with her discussion with Sheryl Swoopes. She was wrong in how she judged Sheryl Swoopes. She was wrong in how she tried to apologize and then hide her hand about that. And let's be honest, white women do this type of shit every day. And I'm sick of it. So to the credit of seeing our legends go back and forth, I don't mind it. I'm okay for a healthy discourse, but I don't like it when they start pitting each other against each other, right? That's number one, because Sheryl Swoopes has yet to say anything negative about Nancy, which I find very Michelle Obama of her, right? Because I'm so sure she could say something about Nancy, but she chooses not to. But to me, I said all of this to say that it's important for us as journalists to find the fun in sports, to talk about the sport itself, because there are people who are covering this game and telling you what's going on with women's basketball. But guess who gets prioritized in the media in clicks and engagement? It's the people who keep up mess. And to be honest with you, I've said this on this show numerous of times, Stacey, the WNBA is messy as hell. We know this. So it's not shocking. It's just, what are we choosing to focus in on? And I think, to be honest with you, I think it's been very great to see Black press outlets really stay focused in on covering the actual game or covering what's happening with these players in a sense of, like, you know, sponsorships, brand deals, all of the things. Like, let's talk about that shit versus this, where we already know Miss Corn ain't gonna say nothing. She's not going to come up and she's not going to defend her teammates. So as far as I'm concerned, she's complicit. She's okay with this because it actually benefits her and it helps market her. That is a fact. And that is okay for it to be a fact. But is it wrong? Yes, it's completely wrong. So let's kind of like focus in on that. And that's kind of where I feel with it. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to keep blocking people because I was blocking people regarding this too. You got one time. You got one time. Because if you can't, no, Stacey and Jay, because honestly, if you can't see that this is doing what it's supposed to do, and you can't figure out how to do your job, either as a fan, a commentator, a journalist, a content creator, wherever you fall in the midst of this, if you can't figure out where to put your energy, we're going to be fighting MAGA all day long. We're going to be fighting racism all day long. And I'm telling y'all, I'm going to find my joy. I get tired of fighting these people every day online. Hence that's why we had the block party. You get a block, you get a block, you get a block.
I got out the barbecue grill for the block party. Let me tell you right now.
so let me say this, because Dawn said a lot. So let me talk about this. First of all, in regards to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and I said it in my article, they're both 22 years old. They're both 22 years old. So to expect either one of them to have the maturity and the life knowledge that we have on this panel or other fans, it's just unrealistic. They both
expect that from Angel.
No, it's not.
Yes, it
No,
is,
it's not.
Hold on, Dawn. Let me finish my point.
No, it's not. I'm gonna say no, it's not.
They're 22 years old. They just they first professional job. They ain't even been on the job 6 months yet. They hadn't even had enough media training yet. Give them both a chance to mature as players and as people before we start judging them as harshly as we are. In terms of Sheryl Swoopes, since you brought it up about what Nancy Lieberman did when she was in the league, all facts. Let me give you another fact. Sheryl Swoopes got her ass fired from Loyola University here in Chicago because she was mistreating players. I know she was doing it because I know two of the players who were on the team. My high school classmate coached them. So Sheryl ain't no angel either. Okay. So both of them are out of pocket. And this is why I'm saying they both need to just chill and let's promote the game. But Cheryl's done some stuff too. The other thing, let's not forget that, and you did state that the WNBA has been rife with problems, especially as it relates to how heterosexual players have been treated. Candace Wiggins came out 7 years ago and said she was targeted because she was a heterosexual Black woman in a league that was full of mostly LGBTQ members. And how that affected her. And so what I wrote in my article is not just Caitlin Clark, but also Angel Reese, also Cameron Brink from the LA Sparks, also Rika Jackson from the LA Sparks. Rickea Jackson. Thank you for correcting me on that. All four of them are very talented rookies. Of course, Brink got injured, unfortunately. They also happen to all be attractive in the eyes of men. Okay, so now you're bringing in a new fan base that may not have been following this league. They're going to come in with their opinions. They're going to come in with their beliefs. And I keep saying this, longtime WNBA fans, you have to be welcoming of the new fan bases coming in. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to like them, but they're coming in. They're going to generate more money, more sponsorship opportunities. So, of course, the WNBA is going to market towards this new group of fans that they're getting. You've been complaining for over 20 years that the league getting the media attention. They're not getting the money they're getting. Well, now they're getting charter jets. And they're getting it because of Caitlin Clark because she got harassed in the
mm-mm.
airport. Brittany Griner also got harassed, but they did it. Let's be honest, they did it because of Caitlin Clark. That's just the truth. I'm sorry. And it's
Okay.
unfortunate that it took that, because they were well deserving of charter flights long before Clark got into the league. But that was the key for them to say, you know what, we need to put our players on charter flights. And it's unfair
Exactly.
that they did it that way, but that is the reality of that situation.
And I appreciate you bringing up Cheryl Swoops' background as well. I pointed out Nancy Lieberman's because Nancy pointed out Cheryl's immediately, and in some of her previous interviews, even before she got to Stephen A. So that's why I harped on that, and hence why I made sure to agree with you, because that's true. Everybody has a past. But what I will say is that it's in welcoming new fans. I feel like the biggest thing that you have to learn as a new fan coming into a sport is that it's okay for you to be wrong. It's okay for you not to know certain things. So when people who have been in this space educate you and tell you what has been going on in this league, or educate you on the patterns, the trajectory, you know, the adjustments, the changes, all of the things, you cannot just decide that you want to create certain narratives, because that's the other thing that we're battling in the midst of these conversations, Jay, is the narratives. There are certain narratives that have been created that, no, that's not what's been happening. That's not what's going on. Hence why we have to make sure that as journalists, we're platforming those people who have been in this space for more than 5 years. If you haven't been in this space for more than 5 years, 9 times out of 10, I'm not listening to you. And yes, it's okay for me to judge these younger athletes, because to be fair, in college basketball, at all of these universities and programs, you are given media training. How do I know? I was a media type person, consultant that will work with universities. And this is something that you know of. And yes, it takes time to grow into this and mature, but baby, people expect that out of Angel. People expect that out of Kennedy Carter, who already has been in the league for years, per se. And, you know, to me, it's just, all it takes is just one damn time for you to recognize that your teammate, Aaliyah Boston, had to get off of social media due to the death threats because people didn't like how she talked to you as her teammate, right? You guys are teammates. She's correcting you on site as a vet. She's challenging you as a rookie. She's uplifting you, because we would see her do positive things like uplifting her, rooting for her, all of the things. Same thing with Cheryl Swoops. As much as people want to say all she's saying is negative things about Caitlin Clark, she is not. Because there was a fan who actually went through her current podcast and found every single episode. And I guarantee you it's a good 10, 15 episodes where she had something positive to say about Caitlin Clark. Critique is needed in coverage of anything that we do. We can be supportive. We can root for whoever we want to root for. But if we cannot call people out for the shit that they're not doing, then we're not doing our jobs. We are now being biased. We are now, picking and choosing how we want to do coverage. And I think that's the part where I'm just trying to push us as journalists. Yes, I may not agree with anything that Jay has said, or there's certain parts where I agree with him, but guess what? I'll retweet his story. Why? Because I know someone else agrees with that, and someone else needs to see that viewpoint. That's what matters. And look at Mike V's comment. Such a good discussion, and only Black-owned media will bring this. Exactly. Because at the end of the day, we actually care about these players and this sport to a point to where it's like, yes, we can agree to disagree, but let's make sure that we're doing our jobs and we're putting the facts out there.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, and unfortunately, it is a great conversation. We got to cut it. But here's the thing, from where I sit anyway, on this whole Caitlin Clark situation. The fact is that I think this young lady is a talented player. Yes, no, there's no question about it. But I also think that with all the racism and the race-related stuff that's been going on around the WNBA because of her and because of Angel, is driven by lack of action on Caitlin Clark's part. It's driven by the fact that Caitlin Clark, in a lot of ways, without speaking it, promotes it. I believe her actions, her inactions, her complaints, and as Dawn alluded to earlier, not backing her teammates. I think all of that promotes this negativity. Unfortunately, I think also that you have, as Power 96 brought out, is something that really is so true, and we as Black men probably don't want to hear it. But you got so many Black men ready to lay down on the train tracks for Caitlin Clark, as if Angel Reese does not exist, as if Angel Reese is just an average player, as if Angel Reese should not be in the league, as if Caitlin Clark deserved an Olympic bid over Angel Reese or anybody else. You know, Caitlin is a good player. And Caitlin was anointed Rookie of the Year before the season started, and it's not going to be a surprise when they give her the award. Now, her team has made the playoffs, which gives her, you know, because when I look at voting for postseason awards, I do look at, well, did your team make the playoffs? It's not the end all to be all, but that is one of those check marks. So Caitlin Clark will probably walk away with that award. I saw someone say a headline, I think it was the Washington Post, or one of those other papers, that said that they should share the award. I'd rather them just give it to one, because it's like Angel said when they won the championship, the college championship, and Jill Biden tried to invite both of them. You know, no, give it to one or the other and let's move on. Right, give it to one or the other and let's move on. But these Black men, and I'm not talking about you, Jay. I mean,
I know.
you
I know
break
where you're
down.
coming from.
But these
Oh my
Black men,
God.
I'm talking about the Charles Barkleys of the world, the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, these other Black men who out here just going all in for Caitlin. You know, get a grip on real life is all I have to say.
That part.
I actually think Jackson may be more deserving of the Rookie of the Year than everybody, but that's just my personal opinion.
Well, me personally, I think it still needs to be Angel Reese. I'm sorry, like
I think so too. And look at like Greer mentions. This is the thing that I didn't mention, and that was on my mind too. Her whole team. Look how she integrated into her team. So
that's what I'm saying.
seamlessly.
Like the locker room, the relationships, how they have uplifted each other. Like look at, because Squad as a kept Coach of the Year could easily, in my opinion, could be Teresa. You know what I'm saying? And that's just because look at how they have intentionally shifted how people see the Sky. Now, mind you, the Sky wasn't just terrible. You know, Candace Parker was there. But the thing is it's one of those things where it's like, we didn't see this coming. We didn't see them being able to bring in rookies to uplift the team as itself. Like, you know, because as far as I'm concerned, that's what you call a leader. That's what you call somebody who knows that it's more than basketball. I'm going to connect with you as a person so that when we get on this court, we got business to take care of. It's us against everybody, no matter who you love, who you were sleeping with last night, and who you showed up with to do the walkthrough for the game. That's important. But the other thing about what you talked about in regards to like Black men and how they're willing to lay on the cross for this girl, what we're finding out, and we found this out in the more recent spaces that discuss what was going on with Nancy and Cheryl Swoops. And Cheryl Swoops was actually in the spaces, and she spoke in that spaces. And I hate that she has to do these things, but I understand why she was there. We're finding out that it's more like Nigerian bot accounts that are keeping some of these conversations going. So that's you know, to Stacey's point, that's why you've got to kind of like focus in on the things that actually need to be reported. That needs to be reported. That needs to be a whole story of the Nigerians are coming in tampering with the league. You know what I'm saying? Like let's talk about those things. But again, at surface value of it all, it is disheartening to see Black men do this, and the way that they go about it, it's very toxic. The misogyny seeps out. They want to attack you. They want to threaten you. And my thing is, you know, after seeing what happened with Tory Lanez and between Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion, I don't put nothing past Black men no more. Like, and this is coming from someone who has been assaulted previously, all of the things. I don't put it past them. And that's something that we as a community have to talk more about, because if you can be online bullying certain people for their thoughts, for the facts that they're telling you, or just their just general conversations that they're having, there's something mentally wrong with you as a person. And from someone who lives with a mental illness on a daily basis, it's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to go get checked out. That's all I'm saying.
And what I'll say to that real quick, Dawn, is that, you know, again, when you bring up the Nigerian bots, you're talking to a dude from Chicago, and we still laughing that Jussie Smollett got used by a bunch of Nigerians. We don't understand how that ever happened when he pulled his nonsense here in Chicago. But, you know, I think, you know, and this is the danger of being on social media too much, is that you can get that impression that this is how most black men feel, when the fact of the matter is it's really just a microcosm of black men in general. I think the average black dude, if you just talk to him, they're down for Angel Reese. And I'm telling you this as a person who lives in Chicago, and I know how much the brothers here love Angel Reese and Cardosa, for that matter, who they also love here. And everybody's experience is different. You know, you've had your experiences, I've had my experiences. Most of my friends, I'd say 90% of them, believe Angel Reese should be the Rookie of the Year. The Angel Reese jerseys are being sold like crazy here in Chicago. There are black men buying them. There are women buying them. I just think you can get a jaded view based off of social media, because like you said, there are bots out there, you know, and it's not just with this WNBA thing. It's also with this political election that we have going on. It's why you can't trust anything that's on social media, because it's not a person a lot of times is doing this. It's these bots doing this. So, you know, yes, black men overwhelmingly are supporting Kamala Harris. Yes, you have the certain celebrities who are speaking out about her, but they're not representative of most black men. I keep stating that. So I think we also have to just talk to the average black dude on the street, ask them what they feel about stuff, and it balances out what you see on social media. I think that's very important for all of us to do, especially us as journalists who are online a lot. I take social media breaks just so that I don't become jaded like that.
Child, who you telling? I take vacations. What are you talking about?
It's just something that's necessary. But I do think that the WNBA, unfortunately, has become politicized. And you could kind of see it coming. And I don't think the WNBA as a league was really prepared for it. And so now
absolutely not.
No, there wasn't. But well, Jay, we always appreciate you dropping in on Let It Be Known. And of course, the one and the only Dawn Montgomery.
Lord have mercy. I didn't pay him to say that, y'all.
We appreciate you both. And thanks everybody for watching. We know we went over time, but hey, this was a fun conversation. It was a needed conversation, and we try to have these as often as possible. Subscribe at YouTube, LIBK-News. Subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow.